Cleary with you on the drive home. 97.8 Dance FM.
I kind of feel bad. You've literally just come off the plane and I've dragged you into the studio.
It's okay, man. I'm used to it.
I've seen you perform. When I spoke to you the other night, I said, you make it look so incredibly easy. Is it just part of your body now? It's just so natural?
Definitely a part of my body. You know, it's a long time doing it, so I'm pretty used to it. You know, you read a crowd, and have a good time with it.
Like you said, that read a crowd. I've noticed some DJs are very good at that and some aren't. How do you read a crowd?
Well, you know, you kind of look around and you're playing your music. It takes me about 30 minutes to really understand what's in the room, and you start seeing clusters of people, just getting into rhythms and grooves and songs or tracks, and you take it from there. Once you unite the entire crowd, then that's it, you got them.
What is it about music, especially living in troubled times? Music seems to bring people together like no other.
Well, that's it. That's what we're here for. We're here to enlighten everybody, make them feel good, and at least for that one night. So that's been my thing for years.
Now, when you agree to do a gig and perform, are there certain things you must have? I was told you actually have a sound engineer?
Yes, we actually go into places and build entire DJ booths. Well, my tech does, he goes in and there's a rider that's followed, and all the equipment is there, and he actually is part of the building process of it. And next thing you know, sometimes we create booths and an entire booth in a place, So, in the end, that's what it's about. You have the proper equipment and you'll be able to perform and do what you do at your best.
You grew up in the Bronx. Did that influence you, your music style?
Very much. If I would have grown up anywhere else, I wouldn't be doing this. But growing up in New York City and up in the Bronx is where it all started. I was there at the birth of hip-hop. My sisters were the disco queens, and, my uncle was a famous salsa singer, so my father played jazz. He's a saxophone player, so it's been in my life for since I was a kid.
Does it amaze you? You go to some random places all over the world and you see people dancing to your music, DJs playing your music. Does it give you like a real kick?
Oh yeah, it's a wonderful feeling to be able to touch people with the music you make or the way you play your music.
You said recently you're still learning, you're always learning. Somebody like Louie Vega, is that possible?
Oh yes, when I'm in the studio, I work with a lot of great musicians, singers, and songwriters, and even when I'm playing music around the world, you're always picking up on things,
I grew up in the 90s and Masters at Work was just everywhere. You met Kenny Dope. How did that connection happen? Because you have a real synergy, power between you both, don't you?
Well, we met through a mutual friend, Todd Terry. I was a big club DJ in New York City since the late 80s. So by the time I met Kenny, I had already played in many of the big clubs in New York. And I was already making records. Kenny was also making records. And it was actually Todd who brought us together through a song that Kenny had done on his label Dope Wax that I had liked. And he said, hey, that was done by a guy named Kenny Dope Gonzales. He works at a record store in Brooklyn. And I said, oh man, I'd love to meet him. And then we met, and ever since then, we connected. And at that time, I was working on an album project. I had my album deal with Atlantic Records, and I brought the singer Mark Antony in to be the lead singer on the album. And for those 6 months working on the record, I brought Kenny in to create some beats for some of the music that I was creating for the album. And from there we hit it off, and we just connected. You mentioned Mark Antony. How did you actually meet? He was in a club and you got chatting and hey, let's work together. When I used to work in the clubs in New York City, they were really young. It was Mark Antony, India. They were like 16, kids. And I was as well in the clubs playing. I was a DJ playing to 2,500 to 4,000 kids up in New York. So they were some of my friends that hung out at the clubs, and they could sing. So the first thing I did was connected with them. And when I went into the studio, magic happened. When you're in the studio and you're about to remix a track, how does the process work? You try a little bit of this, you try a little bit of that. You make a track, you sleep in it, you go back and go, that is good, let's bang it out. Well, there's got to be some inspiration. It could be a hook, it could be the entire song, it could be a part of the music, or usually we start with just a vocal alone, like an a cappella. I play keyboards. I played a lot of the keyboards on the early Masters at Work stuff from like 90 to 96, and then when I started getting spoiled by all the musicians, I kind of slowed down on playing on the tracks. But I always played on a lot of the Masters at Work dubs. So it's just a matter of getting a feel of a groove with the acapella, and just building a new arrangement, and a lot of new instruments and sounds and synthesizers.
Now, someone like yourself, Louie Vega, you're at the top of your game. What about young, upcoming DJs? If you could give them, one bit of advice?
I would say learn an instrument, whether it be a keyboard, piano, or a guitar, even though everything's all computerized and, there's lots of ways to do things. It's really important to learn that instrument, and it's going to help you in the future, trust me, especially if you want to evolve into working with singers and doing it proper, becoming a real producer, learn an instrument.
Nice one, Louie Vega, thanks very much.
This is how it's done. Word! 97.8 Dance FM.